Laziel Foster coughed into his elbow for the third time, glaring at the thin trail of mucus on his sleeve like it had personally betrayed him. His head throbbed, his knees ached, and his breath came in short, wheezy gasps. He had powered through worse before: 2 broken ribs during a rescue op in Jakarta, a dislocated shoulder in Guatemala, and once even a fractured femur in Chad, but this flu was different. It was clawing at him from the inside out. "Still alive?" asked Commander Hezer, the pale blue alien hovering 3 feet off the ground beside him. Its round, glimmering eyes blinked at uneven intervals, its elongated limbs tucked tightly to its sides. It held a scanning rod in one hand, the tip aimed at Laziel's chest. "You tell me," Laziel muttered and leaned back against the wall of the med bay on the United Terran Diplomatic Vessel horizon wing. "You've been poking me with that thing for 20 minutes. Commander Hezer's translator emitted a low chime. "Cellular degradation detected. Fever exceeding sustainable parameters for your kind. Internal inflammation persistent. Your immune system is unusually aggressive." "Yeah, that's called a fever. Humans get M when sick. You said this virus was harmless." Laziel coughed again, this time deeper. He winced, holding his ribs. "I did," Hezer admitted. "Based on its molecular structure, the virus lacks the complexity to evolve past baseline infection. It should not be capable of this level of disruption." "Guess it didn't read your report," Laziel said. He blinked hard, trying to keep the room from spinning. Sweat trickled down his temple, and he felt the fever radiating from his skin. A second alien entered the room, Medical Officer Trin, smaller than Hezer, with a light green hue and jittery movements. Trin approached cautiously, eyes darting between the scanner and Laziel's flushed face. "His vitals are destabilizing," Trin said. "We must initiate full quarantine. The virus is adapting. It's attacking our containment protocols." Hezer's eyewhirls narrowed. "Impossible. These humans are biological chaos." "I'm right here," Laziel mumbled, trying to sit up straighter. That proved to be a mistake. His vision tunneled, and he slumped back down, chest heaving. Trin stepped back. "It's spreading, Commander. The cultures we isolated in the lab mutated in under 12 hours. They're attacking our nanocytes and degrading our antimicrobial fields. This should not be happening." Hezer's expression darkened. "Withdraw the medics. All of them. Effective immediately." "What?" Laziel's voice was raspy. "You're pulling out?" "You are no longer a patient," Hezer said. "You are a biological threat." Trin hesitated. "We cannot leave him to deteriorate." Hezer turned. "We are not equipped to deal with this anomaly." "This flu." "It's not just a flu," Trin interrupted. "It's a biomechanical insurgent." Hezer stared at Laziel. He said, "This flu is nothing special." That was his exact phrasing. Laziel groaned. "It was. I lied. That's what humans do when we're trying to stay calm." The medics retreated, sealing the airlock behind them with a hiss. Laziel was left alone in the medbay, lights dimming to reduce stress on his optic nerves. He tried to lift his arm and failed. Whatever was in him wasn't just fighting, it was winning. By the time the human medical staff arrived 6 hours later, transported in from Earth via emergency shuttle, Laziel had slipped into a semi-conscious state, heart rate irregular, oxygen levels crashing. Dr. Chandra Kesslin, a tall, efficient woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense voice, didn't even wait for the shuttle doors to fully open before barking orders. "Get me vitals, full blood panel, lung imaging, and start him on broad-spectrum antivirals. Prep a ventilator just in case." One of the assistants hesitated. "The alien medics retreated," she snapped. "Because they ran into a virus that doesn't play by their rules. Welcome to Earth biology." They worked through the night. Laziel's lungs had developed fluid pockets. His white blood cell count was off the charts. The virus was replicating in unexpected patterns, triggering immune overdrive. Dr. Kesslin ran 3 blood cultures before she found a treatment combo that began to slow the spread. 2 days passed before he opened his eyes again. "Don't sit up," Chandra said, stepping into view. "You've got a cracked rib from coughing." The imaging showed a minor fracture. "We'll run another test in a week to verify healing. For now, rest." "I feel like I got hit by a truck," Laziel whispered. "You got hit by a truck filled with weaponized influenza, and then some." A nurse adjusted the 4-line. Laziel looked around. "Where are the aliens?" "Gone. Their clean room protocols failed. The virus compromised their internal filtration systems. They had a minor outbreak among their crew. Nothing fatal, but enough to make them panic." He blinked. "They caught it." Yes, and they didn't like it. Their immune systems aren't built for rapid mutation. Yours is. But that doesn't mean you're in the clear. Laziel coughed, a dry bark that sent pain lancing through his chest. So, what now? You recover. Slowly. You're on antivirals, anti-inflammatories, and immune suppressants. No movement for at least a week. After that, we'll start physiotherapy. He sighed. I was supposed to meet with the Kelnari delegation on Monday. You'll be lucky if you can stand by next month. You've got lung damage and your platelet count's still low. You almost went into septic shock. Laziel closed his eyes. The aliens thought it was nothing. They're used to neat, contained biology. Ours is messy, reactive, and full of surprises. That virus didn't even have a name. Now it has its own category in the Galactic Medical Archives. She turned to leave, then paused. You scared the hell out of them. You know that? Laziel coughed again, wincing as his rib throbbed. Good. Dr. Kesslin raised an eyebrow. You want to scare off our allies? I want them to stop underestimating flu season. He spent the next week in bed, monitored hourly. Twice, his fever spiked back up, requiring adjustments and medication. Breathing remained difficult for days. Recovery was slow, as expected. He lost 7 pounds, mostly muscle. His appetite returned gradually, first with broth, then solid food. Physical therapy started on day 10. By day 14, he took his first steps around the med bay, escorted by 2 assistants. His lungs burned, and his legs were unsteady, but he walked. On day 22, Hezer returned to the Horizon Wing, this time flanked by a containment team in full bio-sealed suits. The alien commander waited just outside the med bay, refusing to enter. I see you survived, Hezer said through the intercom. Barely, Laziel murmured. We lost 2 medics to cross-contamination. They are recovering but required full neural reconfiguration therapy. I told you it wasn't nothing. Hezer's translator paused, then said, we underestimated you. Or rather, the tenacity of your biology. You mean the virus? I mean the host. You. Laziel leaned on his walker. So what now? We will apply a new protocol when treating human illnesses. Your kind is incompatible with containment logic. You're welcome. Hezer hesitated. We came to heal. Instead, we retreated. That has never happened before. Laziel nodded. There's a first time for everything. Hezer left without another word. Laziel sank onto the bed, chest heaving, sweat pooling along his neck. Chandra stepped in behind him. Don't get cocky, she warned. You've got at least another month before your immune system stabilizes. I'm not cocky, he said. I'm just tired. She handed him a cup of water. Good. Stay that way. I want you alive when we publish the paper. The world's first flu to make alien medics run screaming? That's a headline. He chuckled weakly and then stopped, wincing. No laughing yet. Got it. Smart man. Outside the medbay, the ship's logs quietly updated. One line stood out among the data. Alien medics retreated from the human's aggressive virus. He said, this flu is nothing special. It wasn't. But it was enough. And that made all the difference. By the 32nd day, Laziel Foster had developed a deep personal hatred for treadmills. The rehab unit aboard the Horizon Wing had outfitted theirs with anti-gravity assist and a dozen biometric sensors, which made it feel less like exercise and more like a mild interrogation. He gripped the rails and forced his legs to keep moving, sweat dripping behind his ears. His breath rasped with each step, but at least he was breathing without supplemental oxygen now. That was progress. Miserable, slow, humiliating progress. Dr. Chandra Kesslin stood nearby, arms crossed, watching him like a hawk that had gone to medical school. You're favoring your left hip again, she said without looking up from her tablet. Shift weight, or I'll reset the incline. It's already uphill, Laziel groaned. What's next? Simulated Everest? Don't tempt me. Your bone density's still down 8%. You want to lose another rib to a sneeze. He grunted and kept walking. Behind the containment glass, a pair of visiting Morthathy scientists observed him, their wide faces pressed too close to the translucent barrier. They took notes with their long, jointless fingers, communicating with each other in high-pitched clicks that reminded Laziel of malfunctioning smoke alarms. Why are they staring at me like I'm a zoo exhibit? He asked. They're trying to determine if your immune system is a form of sentient weaponry, Chandra said. Apparently, one of their linguists found an old Earth comic book about something called Toxic Avenger, and now they think you're a prototype. That's comforting. Could be worse. The Vrel consider you a diplomatic incident in progress. Laziel stumbled slightly and caught himself on the railing. His legs felt like wet rope. We're still on schedule for the Kelnari Treaty Conference, right? She tapped her tablet. Assuming you don't collapse again, yes. But you're not going alone. There's a new protocol. No human representatives can attend off-world summits without a full medical team on standby. He stepped off the treadmill and immediately dropped onto the bench beside it, panting. So I've been promoted from ambassador to biohazard. Not promoted. Categorized. She handed him a towel. There's a difference. Later that evening, around second meal cycle, the ship's forward observation deck was cleared for a private meeting. Laziel stood at the viewport, arms crossed, watching the stars streak past as the horizon wing cruised back toward neutral space. Hezer arrived with 2 security escorts dressed in neutral gray. They flanked him but kept their distance, as if proximity alone might re-trigger some biological catastrophe. Hezer approached slowly, his upper limbs folded across his chest in what Laziel had learned was a gesture of caution, not aggression. This is not a diplomatic summons, Hezer said. I figured. No hors d'oeuvres. I do not understand that term. Never mind. What do you want? Hezer gestured toward the viewport. The Kelnari delegation has requested a pre-conference engagement. They wish to meet the human who survived the bioadaptive plague. Laziel turned. Plague? It was a flu. Your terminology is insufficient. It has since been classified as a destabilizing viral anomaly. And they want to meet me why? To determine if you are genetically anomalous or representative of your species. I'm not special, Laziel said. I'm just stubborn. Precisely why they are concerned. Hezer's translator paused, then added, almost reluctantly, they have requested a demonstration. Laziel blinked. Of what? Resilience. You want me to? What? Go cough on a petri dish for them. They have constructed a simulated environment based on the data we collected from your infection profile. They wish to see how your physiology responds under identical parameters. Chandra's voice came from behind them. Absolutely not. She stepped forward, arms stiff at her sides. He's still rebuilding his pulmonary capacity. You want to throw him into a controlled outbreak. It is not infectious, Hezer said. The simulation is digital. It doesn't matter. That data set includes every immune overreaction, every inflammatory stress spike, every organ strain. You're going to make him relive the worst week of his life so they can take notes. They require reassurance. Laziel exhaled. If I don't do it, what happens? They may withdraw from the treaty negotiations. The Vrel are already skeptical. The Kelnari trust them. If both abstain, the Terran Alliance proposal dies in committee. He looked at Chandra. How bad would it be? She hesitated. You won't physically feel anything, but your nervous system might react out of memory. Phantom symptoms. Nausea. Spikes in cortisol. Possible sensory hallucinations. He nodded once. Let's schedule it. Chandra frowned. I'll be monitoring every second. The next morning, Laziel was strapped into the neural sim chamber, a sleek black pod lined with conductive mesh. Electrodes dotted his scalp and spine. The chamber sealed with a hiss, plunging him into darkness. Initializing sequence, said a disembodied voice. Simulated infection protocol commencing in 3, 2. The world blinked into existence. He stood in a sterile white room, identical to the Horizon Wing Mebe. The air was heavy. His chest felt tight. The lights flickered faintly, and a low hum vibrated through the floor. He took a breath and felt the phantom burn in his throat. His skin prickled. Outside the simulated window, a storm raged, an artistic flourish added by the Kelnari, perhaps, to dramatize the event. A timer hovered in the air. Elapsed time, 47 seconds. His heart pounded. Sweat rolled down his neck. He knew it wasn't real, but his body didn't care. A synthetic version of Chandra's voice echoed through the chamber. Vitals within acceptable range. Stimulants engaged. He doubled over as a wave of nausea hit. Not actual vomiting, just the cruel suggestion of it. His vision blurred. The timer ticked on. At the 3-minute mark, the fever simulation began. Heat bloomed along his spine. He staggered back against the wall and slid down, breathing in ragged gasps. The Kelnari observers were watching from a glass room above digital avatars with elongated necks and shimmering robes. One of them leaned forward, fascinated. The simulation pushed harder. Artificial coughing spasms racked his body. His muscles seized. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. The timer passed 10 minutes. He forced himself upright, teeth clenched. "Is that all you've got?" he muttered to no one. More heat. More dizziness. The illusion of blood pressure dropping. He felt like he was drowning in his own body. At 15 minutes, a tone sounded and everything stopped. The lights returned to normal. The heat vanished. His breathing slowed. The avatars bowed and faded from view. Inside the real chamber, the pod unsealed. Chandra caught him as he slumped forward, sweat-soaked and shaking. "You're done," she whispered. Hezer appeared at the control panel. "The Kelnari are satisfied. They have confirmed attendance." Laziel closed his eyes. "Tell them next time, I expect snacks." Chandra guided him toward the infirmary. "You're getting electrolytes and a full scan. No arguments." He didn't argue. That night, news of the simulation leaked to the wider diplomatic network. Within hours, a dozen species sent requests for interviews. A few wanted blood samples. One offered honorary citizenship in a star system Laziel had never heard of. Back in his quarters, he stared at the datapad overflowing with requests and rolled his eyes. "I get the flu," he muttered, "and suddenly I'm the poster boy for human durability." He set the pad down and picked up the small wooden carving the Kelnari had sent as thanks, a stylized figure with a spiral core and outstretched arms. It was warm to the touch, strangely comforting. He set it beside his bunk and lay back, exhausted. Outside, the stars didn't notice. But the galaxy had. The first thing Laziel noticed when he stepped into the Kelnari High Assembly Hall was the smell, vaguely metallic, like ozone after a lightning strike, but with a whiff of something earthy and sweet. The kind of scent that made you instinctively duck, expecting either a ceremonial explosion or a surprise feast. Neither came. Instead, a tall Kelnari official approached, draped in a robe that shimmered between copper and amethyst depending on the angle. His limbs moved in slow, sweeping arcs, and his face was unreadable, not because of lack of expression, but because it had too many. Thin filaments extended from his cheeks and forehead, twitching subtly as he appraised Laziel. "You are the one who endured the internal firestorm," the official said. Laziel adjusted the collar of his diplomatic uniform. "I had the flu. That word remains insufficient. I've heard." Beside him, Chandra remained silent, her arms folded across her chest. She had insisted on accompanying him all the way to the assembly floor, despite not being part of the official delegation. The Kelnari hadn't objected. Apparently, physicians held honorary status in their culture, especially when they'd kept a volatile biological entity from inadvertently starting a pandemic. The official led them through a series of curved corridors, each lined with what looked like fossilized tree roots embedded in the walls. They pulsed faintly as they passed, responding to their movement. Laziel tried not to stare. Inside the main chamber, a crowd of over 100 species representatives had already gathered. Their seating arrangement spiraled outward from the central podium like the rings of a tree. Laziel took his designated position at the Terran delegation's island, flanked by 2 Earth envoys and Chandra. A hush fell over the room as the Kelnari speaker stepped forward. "The Terran delegate has arrived," the announcer said. Laziel stood. A rustle of motion swept the chamber. Several species unfolded bioluminescent fronds, others blinked in complex patterns, and a few emitted low, rhythmic hums. It was the interstellar equivalent of applause. He cleared his throat, then immediately regretted it. Not because it hurt, it didn't anymore, but because the sound triggered a visible flinch from the Dravalian observers, whose species, according to Chandra, had a deep-rooted fear of exhaled moisture. "I'm honored to be here," he began. "And very much alive, which is more than I expected a few weeks ago." A few cautious chuckles rippled through the crowd, mostly from species familiar with sarcasm. The Vrel representative looked deeply confused. "I understand this conference was almost canceled due to concerns about human biological volatility. I'd like to clarify, we don't usually weaponize our illnesses. That would be overkill. We're already enough trouble when healthy." The Dravalians blinked out of sync. He continued, "But what happened wasn't just about a virus, or even about me. It was about misunderstanding. You studied us, you had data, and still you didn't see it coming. That's not unusual. We don't always see ourselves coming either." That earned a few nods. "We're not the most advanced species out here. Not the strongest, not the fastest. But we adapt. That's what we do. We adapt when it's uncomfortable, when it's illogical, and sometimes even when it's unnecessary. We survive things we shouldn't. That's not heroism. That's just being human. He paused, letting the words settle. I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm here to sign a treaty. Because despite everything, despite the medical evacuations, the simulations, the rumors, I believe we're better together. Even if we sneeze on each other occasionally. A soft wave of light passed through the chamber agreement in the Kelnari mode. The treaty was ratified less than 2 hours later. By late evening, the diplomatic celebration had moved to the Kelnari Gardens, a towering biosphere carved into the side of a cliff. Laziel sat on a stone bench beneath a tree whose leaves changed shape depending on the angle of the wind. Chandra handed him a glass filled with a purple liquid that steamed faintly. Don't drink it too fast, she warned. It contains a mild neurostimulant, supposed to enhance short-term memory without the usual side effects. He took a cautious sip. Tastes like warm rhubarb. Probably is. Their agriculture's weirdly intuitive. He swirled the glass. So, that's it. We're officially not a threat anymore. Oh, you're still a threat, she said. But now you're a known quantity. That makes everyone more comfortable. He looked across the garden, where Hezer stood in quiet conversation with 3 other delegates. The alien commander caught his eye and nodded once. I didn't think he'd show, Laziel said. He didn't have to. But he's here. That means something. Chandra sat beside him. You know, in some circles, you're being called the immune vanguard. Sounds like a gym supplement. It's better than Patient Zero Diplomatique. That one's making the rounds on the fringe networks. He leaned back. I just wanted to do my job. You did. And you nearly died doing it. Twice. You think that's normal? No. But it's not complicated either. People were counting on me. That's enough. She nodded. You're cleared for full activity in another week, by the way. Assuming your lung capacity continues improving. No more treadmill excuses. He winced. Can I negotiate that into the treaty? Too late. A soft chime sounded near the garden entrance. A small group of Morkathi scientists approached, carrying a glossy black container about the size of a suitcase. One of them extended it toward Laziel. He raised an eyebrow. What's this? A gift, the lead scientist said. We have synthesized a commemorative sculpture based on your immune response telemetry. It is a kinetic piece. When exposed to ambient body heat, it replicates the waveform patterns of your fever spikes. The container opened, revealing a crystalline sculpture that shimmered with internal movement. Threads of light swirled within, weaving through translucent channels like a storm trapped in glass. Laziel stared. That's surprisingly beautiful. It is unstable, the scientist added. Do not store it near sugar-based organisms. Noted. They left. Chandra leaned in. You're starting a collection. I didn't even want a souvenir. Tough. You're a symbol now. He sighed. Symbols don't get hazard pay. No, but they get their own Wikipedia section. He looked up at the stars, brighter here than they ever seemed back home. So what happens now? You go back to Earth. You finish rehab. You write a report so dense no one will read past the second page. And then someone sends you to the next diplomatic firestorm because you're apparently indestructible. I'm not indestructible. You coughed your way into galactic notoriety. You'll be fine. He drained the rest of the rhubarb drink. If I ever get assigned to a jungle planet with flu season again, I'm filing a protest. I'll help you write it. They sat in silence for a while, the garden humming gently around them. No alarms. No fever. No containment fields. Just stars and wind, and the quiet knowledge that for once humanity had terrified the galaxy not with weapons, but with the simple, baffling fact that it refused to die quietly. And, somehow, that had been enough.